Welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here today with video 11 in the series of building the beanery, so stay tuned. So once again, welcome back. In this video we should be able to get quite a lot of things done. We've got a lot of projects with this building going on. We ought to be able to complete a whole lot of them and get this building really starting to come together big time towards a finish line. I don't think we'll quite finish the building, but we ought to be able to go a long ways in this video. Also would like to make a comment. A couple of people had asked me, when you go through my videos on this, there's a couple of numbers missing in the series. There was a couple videos that I took down, one I redid. The first number that's missing in the series was when I was in the hospital and made a video and just put it up on this series about the fact that I wasn't going to have a video out for a little while due to health reasons and stuff. So anyway, I took that video down, so the number is missing. And one later in the series, I had all kinds of problems with all the videos and stuff were being corrupted and stuff, and I was in the middle of working on the video, and I finally just gave up and just left the file in place but never published it. So there's two videos missing from this series. So if that doesn't make sense when you go through them, you think, oh my god, what am I missing or whatever, you're not really missing anything. The videos that I have published have everything out there that I've been going through. So we're going to continue on with this build and see how far we can get in this video. I'm really excited about this one, so let's get started. We need to come back on these buildings and add cornice work to the top of this building here. So I just built the three basic structures out of the two pieces of wildwood like I did on the previous building, and we're going to come back and start cutting pieces to put that together. The very first piece is to get a square end to come in to the very end of the building to start off with, and once we get a couple pieces on, there's this odd cut on this inside corner, and it's just easier, instead of doing 45s, to cut an overlap in the board as I'm doing here, and you'll see how this fits together, but it creates a real good solid seam in that corner. And it just alleviates having to do 45s. It's a much easier and tighter corner to do for that particular type of area there. So that's what we're going to run with there. And then I just come back and work on some other areas of the cornice. We're going to start off here with the second wall, just doing the straight piece. And I did the 45 on this first because I can make it work to the corner exactly the way I want it and come back, and it's easier to cut the square end to length. So I kind of started backwards instead of starting at the end of the wall. I kind of started out at the far corner. But once I come back here and cut this off and do a little bit of sanding on it just to get any light debris off of it, we'll come back and glue this onto the building and get the cornice work started on this third wall. This is all coming together pretty quick now. So anyway, I'm coming back and marking for a 45 on the other end. Getting a good square against the flat corner of the building, and then you'll see me use my triangle to mark the 45 on the other side of that. And this just gives me a nice edge to work the other corner into. I like doing the 45s. It's harder on these outside corners to really get a good overlap type of fitting, at least for me. Everybody has their own particular way of doing things. This is just what works for me. And you can see here, once it's in place, that it fits really nice, and it gives me a good corner to start the next piece with. So I glue it into place and clamp it on here just to get it to go ahead and set up for a while. I'll let the glue adhere really well so I don't have to worry about it. And then we come back and start working with the other piece. We start with the 45, or actually I'm starting with the square corner in the corner and then coming out to the 45 on this one. So anyway, it's the same process as we used with the other building. This cornice work all gets to just be second nature after you do it for a while. It's just one piece after another, and you can see here that piece goes in and fits up pretty nice. So when we got
the two other pieces that we'll go ahead and add on off camera that wrap around the other corner out there. And now we're going to start on some of the parts to this little building down here in this lower corner. There's some wood trim underneath that as well. So we're going to come back and go ahead and mount the wood for it's just not really a big cornice work like the top part of the building. But I'm just using my tester's glue, and we're going to wrap that corner with wood like we did at the top. Just basically smaller pieces though. And I start off with both sides in front of me and just go ahead and do one piece on each one of them and let that set up for a little bit. You can see some of the other plastic work I did for the roof support. We'll go into how I did that here in a minute. Sometimes I get the cart before the horse, so to speak, and in this video that just proves that point. But adding the piece to the other wall as well. And we're going to do both the wood pieces on both sides and get all that in place. So I just let this set up and come back and cut them off, and then the wood's in place. And the roof supports, what I did was start with this corner brace first to come from the outside building corner to the inside of the main wall structure, and then come back and put these two outer side supports against the walls themselves and glue all that into place. And then once all that's in place well enough, I can just get plastic and lay in place on top of that and use my pencil inside against those plastic pieces I had and mark where the center line would be. And I know I've got a little bit of an overhang at the bottom, so I'm coming back here and just kind of marking where the bottom edge would be on that same piece of plastic. And then we'll take that and cut triangles. You can see I've already got the previous angle cut for the other side of that corner, and I just did it the same way as I'm doing this one. And then once I've got the plastic marked, I come back here and just put them into place on the structure, make sure everything's going to fit really well. I did have to trim one of the bottoms a little bit to make the lower corner meet, but then I glued them in place, and we have a good little piece there, and the cornice work's done on the top of that wall, so that wall's coming together pretty quick. So now we're going to start working a little more under the cornice of this tower roof here. You saw that I put some wood, wrapped the top of it with a small piece of wood as the first basis piece for that in a previous video. So we're going to come back now and we're going to mark the seams on the top. I want to start by going ahead and just getting some of this standing seam roof done on this building. So what I did was where the plastic pieces meet on those ridge lines, I came back and used a piece of styrene that's 20 by 20 millimeter each, or 0.20 by 0.20. It's an evergreen product, and just put seams down those to cover the joints in the plastic. And then I come back here and mark 2 feet lines. And I marked them at the bottom first, and I'm just using this square to go ahead and run those lines all the way up to that ridge where that other previous piece was that I glued on. And I just come through and mark all 4 sides of them, make sure all the lines are where I want them to be, make sure there's good even spacing. When you come back and glue the plastic in place, you can always play with that a little bit, but here you can see all the lines in place. So I've got everything marked out so I can come back and start cutting and gluing all these little seams in. And it's just a long drawn out process. And here's that styrene that I was talking about, the 0.020, 0.020, just an evergreen scale models. I've had this forever. I guess maybe they still carry this, or somebody out there I'm sure does. Here you can see me going and gluing that piece I talked about earlier where the ridge cap is. And I just do this to all 4 sides and bring all of them right up to the very peak so that they meet at the peak. Now there is something we're going to do to the peak later on, so we may have to come back and doctor the very top of this at some point. But I just basically lay this in place and then cut it off and use my glue and put it on the piece. I try not to get too much glue on the roof itself, so I just apply the glue to each of these little pieces and then put them in place and work with them in place. That way I don't have a lot of glue smears all over the top. I'm going to have a few of them here and there anyway that I may have to play around with a little bit. But here you can see me coming back and just starting on all of the upright pieces that come and meet those seams. And I let them run just a little bit long at the bottom. That way I can come back once a side is completed and turn it upside down, and I can just come up through with an X-Acto and trim off all the long edges. And the very far ends, some of those pieces are really small, so sometimes the pieces that I'm cutting off are long enough to do the very far outside pieces. And here you can see the first side is done here in this picture. And then once we come to this picture, all four sides are all done and cut off and ready for the next phase of that piece. So now we're going to come back and we're going to work on some more of that cornice underneath of that roof. Like I mentioned before, you can see where I have this wood glued on from before, and I just, you know, I do make mistakes. I had made this cornice piece, which is a layer of two different pieces of plastic which meet on those steps on the back side of those clear pieces that I'm casting. And I came back and measured and cut it to length and started marking where everything goes on it. And I forgot to leave an excess on the end for 45-degree corners. So I came back here and made two more of the same type of cornice plastic pieces. There's two pieces of plastic on each one of these, and I made them really long. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a 45 on one end, and then I'm going to put it in place. And sometimes I get off camera with some of this, but I cut the 45 there and mark the other side, and I'm going to make sure I get it nice and square because I want that whole corner to meet up really well. And then I come back, and I'm not measuring this, I'm just using my knife at an angle and cutting 45s. And I do the first two sides and glue them on and then clamp them in place and let that set up. And I come back and do the other two sides and just wrap the whole corner that way. And here I'm just coming back. Once all that's in place, there are a total of 5 of those casted pieces that I'm making in the center of these, and there's one on the far corner of each of these corners. So there's a total of 7 on each side, with the corners being duplicated in the odd sides. So I'm coming back and measuring all 4 sides for where those would be. And I'm not ready really to glue those on yet, but I want to just take one here. I like fitting things over and over and over, like I've said before. So I'm coming back and just checking the way those would set on there. And once I set this on there, I can see that I really need excuse me, I need to add a little bit of wood to the bottom of that wooden piece that I had on before, because this piece really comes down just a little beyond the wood piece that I had on there before. So I've made a decision to go ahead and extend that wood piece down a little more. So here's a shot of just the basic building. I went ahead and added the windows and stuff into the building. I get antsy. Sometimes I put the horse before, or the cart before the horse, but I think in this case I'm okay to go ahead and do this. I don't think I'm going to hamper any of the work I'm going to do after this by doing that. So anyway, I had to come back and throw some shots of that in there. It's very inspiring. So anyway, to get that wood piece on underneath that corner, being that I've already painted all this, I'm going to have to come back with a knife and just scrape some of that paint off right underneath the other wood piece so I can get the glue to adhere to the plastic underneath of it. And I do all 4 sides. I just come back with a knife and basically scrape about a brick and a half worth of width of paint off all the way around underneath of that. And just come back and add a real thin layer of the tester glue, and then put the wood pieces in place and get a clamp on them. And I'm just squaring these up to the ends of the brick because I can overlap the wood at the corners without 45s and get a good square corner on them. So I just put 2 sides on at a time and clamp these off and get them to set up really good, and then come back and do the other 2 sides. And then, you know, eventually we'll have all this cornice work done. Hopefully in the next video I can get to the point where I'm doing all these pieces. But I wanted to do another shot here of all those pieces kind of setting together. I haven't glued these wings onto the main building yet, but you know, it's real inspiring to see all this coming together like that. With all the windows and doors in this building, it's really starting to look like a nice structure.
Okay, so now I'm getting excited. This building is coming together quickly now, at least this portion of the building. Like I said before, we've still got the 2 3-story hotel room buildings that go on behind this with some other details and stuff like that. There's still a lot of detail and stuff to add into these yet, but it is coming together, and it's starting to look like a real building. You know, I'm a landscaper, and sometimes $20,000 worth of plants don't make the garden look as nice as $2,000 worth of mulch. And the same thing here, painting windows. You know, after all the hours and hours spent just getting the windows into place and a little bit of paint on the walls, it's incredible how far the building transforms in that short period of time. So we're coming along really well with this. I'm going to look forward to doing the next video, because things are just going to zip right along now and get things done really quickly. So anyway, thanks for coming back and sharing my videos with me. I appreciate you watching my videos. Share and like the videos. There's a lot of people out there, I keep harping on this every time I do a video, but there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to build buildings from scratch, and they would like to. Not that I'm the best craftsman in the world, but you could probably pick up a few pointers from this if you've never done it before, and give you some confidence to where you can just start building buildings for yourself. It's not that hard. It's time consuming, and everybody builds their craft by doing a few small buildings and working up to bigger buildings. I've been doing buildings for, oh my God, years and years and years. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about, well, when did you start? And I don't know, I was probably in 2nd or 3rd grade the first time I really scratch built a building. We had built a new home, and there was some paneling left out in the weather, and all the plies came apart, and it left these real thin pieces of wood. And I took some razor blade and cut little boards out of it. It was nice, a weathered structure when it was said and done. It's probably a little crude and rudimentary compared to some of the stuff I do now. Not that what I do now is the highest of quality. Start with small sheds or something like that, and move up to something the size of a house, or a smaller office building or something like that. There are tons of railroad buildings out there that are really dilapidated and not looking good anyway. You know, you can mess up a ton of things doing buildings like that, and nobody would ever know the difference. So jump out there and build a few buildings. And anyway, go down the bottom, like I said, like and share these, and also hit that subscribe button, and then you'll be notified when the next video comes out in the series. I've got some other things coming up here real soon too. The oddities I'm going to throw into the mix of all this, and so there's some other things coming your way. So anyway, once again, thanks for coming back and sharing my videos. I do appreciate you watching them. Comment down below or ask questions, and I'll get back to you and try to help you as much as I can. Until next time, happy model railroading.